YouTube vintage radio collectors. I find when I started out in antique radios, whatever that means, I was buying up stuff. What the focus was on radios of the early stuff, 20s, 30s into the 40s. Now I find people that are interested in their definition of an antique radio would be an early solid state radio. You know, like late 50s through the 60s. There seems to be less focus on the tube radios, and of course we're into another generation now. This one is exceptional. I have never seen one of these before. I did a video on it with it apart. It's together. It's the 15L-822F Toshiba 1968 model, and it weighs 10 pounds 7 ounces without batteries. Now this is a real radio. Okay, it's heavy duty. It can take a few bumps. It can take some dirt, some vibration, and look at the way it cleaned up. Look at the way it works. I had to do a few modifications on it. The original dial lights were no good. Couldn't find them anymore. So now it has LEDs which should last for hundreds and hundreds of hours. It also comes on with the power switch because they draw us a little power. The light switches on these right here. It's still there, but it doesn't work anymore. Minor modification. The other thing about these is I don't think you want to walk around with this with 6 D-cell batteries in it. It would make it very unwieldy to use. And it didn't have an internal power supply, so I've actually had stereo cassette players, you know, from the 80s that were called blasters at the time, that had like a cassette deck in them, FM stereo, loaded with batteries that were lighter than this. But I gotta say, this is the definition, textbook definition of a multi-band solid state radio. 4 bands: AM, shortwave 1 2 to 6 megahertz, shortwave 2 6 to 18 megahertz, and then FM. Just on shortwave right now. It has fine tuning. So if you can get the stations that are hard to get. This is just with the regular antenna.
Or give us a call at 772-8888.
It's actually very sensitive. But I gotta tell you, this is where this baby shines, and I want you to think back what it would have been like having one of these brand new. Family would have been coming over to see it. So we're in the FM mode.
I know I used to be crazy, mess.
Treble, bass.
Not a problem. Stop 50% of the light getting in. That's
It gets everything any of my newer radios get. Antenna works really nicely. Lucky to have survived straight. It goes down on a little felt pad. The original one was done. I'm just going to spin it around so you can see it. It has rubber feet. And on the back, this is one little mod that I did. It didn't come with any kind of an adapter, so I actually found a DC 9-volt regulated one at a surplus store. And then put a tip on it, a 3.5mm tip. There were 2 earphone jacks on this, so one's been modified with a identifier DC 9-volt tip minus. I think there's some kind of a power supply that fit inside the battery compartment. Can't find any documentation on it, not even in the source literature, that had an off-on switch and a cord that came out. If anybody knows anything about that, leave a comment. Here would have been for an earphone, I think. Would make sense. A lot of people did earphone listening back then. That was a thing, you know. Listen to your own private broadcasts while another million people were listening at the same time. This one had quite a battery spill in it. It was difficult to clean up. but it did come back nicely. Just like this wood applique is so nice. It is a very, very thin piece of veneer. It's not paper, it's something else. And this handle is wood. It's solid as a rock, and of course you have these switches, AM shortwave 1, shortwave 2, and FM. Solid metal grill. So there's a little run through on it, and all I can say is this is a real radio, okay? An internet radio on your smartphone is not a real radio, okay? A smartphone radio is not going to still work over 50 years later. It's just not going to. And this thing will last another 50 years. All new caps in it. And here's the marvel of the whole thing. All these bands are still alive with talk and music all these years down the road. So I think this is one for enjoyment. It has great sound too. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.